Everybody, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a mod on this brand new Casio that I picked up. This is the really beefy DW-291H. This comes in 3 color variations, and this particular one has that really cool factory, almost like vintage yellowish greenish look with that fake carbon fiber bezel. And what we're going to be doing today is adding some colored filters, keeping it pretty much the same, but putting some chrome orange by Lee filters in the analog clock, and then another chrome orange strip right there where it counts down the seconds. And yeah, I think that should be good. Nothing too much, but just adding a little bit of pop of color and making this for a good friend of mine to be giving as a gift. So. All right, so to get started, quick wrist check. Wearing the Casio EFV, I believe, 100D in white on this Xeric strap. Unfortunately, this watch and its other colors was discontinued by Casio. Really fantastic piece for the price. All right, so to get started here, we're going to make sure that the screen here is protected. So I'm leaving that factory protective film on, and then make sure you're working on something relatively soft like this rubber mat that I have here. This one has a couple of extensions on the strap that prevents the case back from coming off with the screws removed. So you have to remove at least one of these. So go to either end, either the short or the long side of the strap. Go ahead and use your lug tool, pry outward to inward like this, and then simultaneously with your other finger, kind of push out in this direction. That'll free the spring bar, and then as you separate that strap out, try to lift it in this direction rather than just pulling out this way. So I'm going to pop this out this way first, and the reason for that is if you pull this out straight away, you're going to, prematurely wear down that resin hole in the lugs, which is pretty fragile because we're not working with metal here. So there's your strap. There's your 18mm spring bar. We can set that guy to the side. You can choose to remove the other side if you want a little bit more access to the watch, but it's not necessary. So I'm just going to leave that on. Take these 4 screws off using a micro screwdriver. Okay, let's go ahead and set these screws to the side. So sometimes these get stuck. Zoom in a little bit here. So if they get stuck, go ahead and just, gently rotate them around. Pull them out. There we go. Okay, let's lift up on this case back here. It's normal, by the way, for brand new watches from Casio, especially in this price point, to have a lot of smudges and sometimes hairline scratches here on the back, but we'll clean that up as much as we can before sending this out to my buddy. Set that to the side there. Then you have your watch module on the inside. So take another tool here, either 12 or 6 o'clock position, it doesn't really matter. Go ahead and lift gently up on that, remove the module. So there's your module, set that to the side. Take another tool, and you can either, actually just flip the watch over, give it a little tap. That's the safest thing to do. This is called the masking, by the way. It divides up that screen. So we'll set that to the side. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and cover this back up right away to limit dust from entering inside there. And I'm just going to leave that loosely on. I'm not going to put the screws back there. One other thing to take note of here is the O-ring. So actually, let's go ahead and remove that O-ring just for good measure, so that way if yours falls out, you can watch this video to remember how to put it back. Okay, and then we'll put this case back here. All right, so we have our spare parts here to the side. And we're going to go to our masking and we'll grab some filters. So I have this tray here of filters that I've cut and just never used the rest of it. So I have chrome orange in here. And I believe I have enough to do this mod. All the colors, by the way, and listings where to buy them will be in the description below. Let's see if that's wide enough. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'll set this one. Actually, I don't think that's the chrome orange. This is the orange. There we go. This is the amber, I believe. So there's the chrome orange filter. Set that guy to the side. Okay. And we'll flip this over. Okay. Then we're going to trace what we need to cut out here. So take your filter, and as long as you have some 90-degree edges here, go ahead and line that up on one of the corners. I like to usually go to the analog clock corner like so. Go ahead and leave it in there. Take a fine tip Sharpie, if you have one. Hold that filter in place. Okay, and so again, we're making the analog clock orange and this tiny strip here orange as well. So I'm going to kind of trace out a shape for that. So we have this analog clock here. And then this thin strip here. Okay, now when it comes to that thin strip that I want to cover, I'm not going to make a line across, even though that would be simpler, so I could cut. The reason is those bars on the masking, this section right here, they're so thin that sometimes if you're looking at the watch from an angle, once it's reassembled, you can see the Sharpie mark. So I try to just put some dots here, and then I'm going to put another set of dots here on the other side, and then I'll just connect the dots visually while I'm cutting with my scissors. So I'll put one dot here at the bottom, and then another dot here at the top, kind of like that. And then you notice here I don't trace, a very small area around that analog clock. I like to leave some big chunks to the top and to the left, just so I have space to apply my double-sided tape. And I think that will be it right there. And we'll put another dot up here just so we know how far to the right to go. Okay. Now it's best to use really fine scissors. So if you have like a Victorinox scissor, that would be fine. You can probably get away with other scissors too. It just makes the cut a little bit more precise. So here I have my Buck X-Track multi-tool here. So very good scissors. So we'll go ahead and cut this filter out. So because I'm not really using the bottom of the filter here because it's all kind of, cut up already, I can grab that with my fingers. If you have gloves, that would be best to use gloves to cut these out, but I don't have any. So we'll go ahead and try to cut these and connect those dots. And then the one here at the bottom. Okay, set that filter to the side. So lift this up, cut the remainder of the dots here. Actually, I'm going to cut just a little bit wider of those dots so I have a place to put my tape. Okay. Let's go ahead and cut the analog clock portion here. Okay. And one more section here to cut. All right, so we have our analog clock portion right there. Hopefully you can see that. So let's work with that first. Actually, let's loosely line these up and then we can fine tune it. So here's our masking. Set that part down. Oops. Sometimes you can get a little bit of static when doing this, so the filter likes to jump around a little bit. Also notice I'm using plastic tweezers here. If you use metal, you can probably be fine as long as you're not grabbing these too tightly. The problem though with the metal is that they can easily crease the filter compared to the plastic. So just be aware of how much pressure you're putting on when you're holding it. Okay, so a little bit here that I have to take off on that analog clock. Just a tiny little bit. So let's go ahead and correct that right now. So lift this up, take my scissor and get that last little corner. There we go. Reset that down. And let's see how this looks. Okay, great. So I have enough here to cover the analog clock, and the filter is not too wide that I'm hitting other areas like here or down here. Okay. This little bend here is the trickier part, just because you have to get that curve in. So that looks good right there. So that part I can set to the side for now, that filter. Okay. Let's take the other side. Okay. So again, we are just covering here on the bottom. Okay, so it looks like I cut that too short. I should have a little bit more meat here on the right and the left. So it's my bad. Let's do this again. We'll take our filter here. Just kind of lay that down. Let's make the dot a little longer or a little wider apart. Okay, looks good. Let's cut this again. Okay, let's try that one out. Good, we've got the width. Now we just have to cut out that rounded part over there. So I'll mark this again. Okay. It's probably again anytime you have curves in this masking, it's always going to be a little bit harder to pick it up. Okay. Okay, so we got the length. Now I'm just a little bit worried here that this filter might go into the orange. Another filter is going to go in here, so it's not a big deal, but if you have two filters overlapping, that's more of an issue. So it looks like I have to trim this more middle part of the curve just a little bit more. So okay, let's try this out. All right, so that looks good. All right, perfect. So now we can go ahead and move on to putting on our double-sided tape. So in most of my videos, I usually use super glue, but now I was able to pick up some double-sided sticky tape, which has been a little tricky to find, at least around me here. Usually the double-sided sticky tape is much too thick. It's even probably thicker than duct tape. And when you have double-sided tape that's too thick, the filter tends to kind of look like it's sunken and not pressed up against the masking, which just doesn't look good. So this is the double-sided tape I got. I threw away the box, but there's the brand. TRex super glue tape. I'm going to try to find it on Amazon and put it in the link below, or maybe Walmart, because that's where I picked this up from. Very, very thin, so let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so that's how thin it is, and there's a pin to your right for reference. So very thin, and again, double-sided. So right now, as I'm peeling this up, the backside is sticky, and then you have this protective layer on the other side. So let me kind of show you how I set up my preparation for cutting. Maybe let's just do it this way. I'll just shift my work area. So when you use, it could be easy enough to cut with scissors, but as you try to make a really thin cut, because again, you don't really have a lot of real estate on the masking, so you really need to make thin strips. So if you really try to make thin strips with the scissor, what ends up happening is the tape ends up folding in on itself and getting stuck between the blades of the scissors. So what I found best to do is, let's move this to the left, is I'll take a pretty sizable strip like this. So I've stuck this piece to a chopping board. So right now the sticky part is on top of the chopping board. The protective tape is facing me, and then I'll take my scalpel knife, and it's best to use a brand new blade if possible. Okay, and then you can really cut much thinner strips than you can with a typical scissor. So I'll kind of support one corner like this and draw this down like so. Okay, like that. And then you can lift up on the protective part. So this is nothing, that's just a protective layer. And then right there in clear, I don't know if you can see that. I should have chosen a wooden chopping board for contrast, but I'm going to lift this up so you can see what I'm talking about. And let's put this here on the blue part of the chopping board to make it easier. There. Okay, that should be better. Okay, so now you see the tape here. And then what I'll do is, now that I have it sticking to the chopping board, it makes it much easier to cut because the tape is kept taut by the adhesive. So you can go ahead and cut, thin strips here and apply it as need be. So I like to prep my strips ahead of time just so I don't have to keep repeating the same movements. So I'll take this strip here. This is still a little bit too thick. I'm going to move this back to the chopping board so I can cut. Okay. And I know this is not going to show up well on the camera, so I apologize. Let's dial down the brightness there. So I'll hold that in place and then make this just a little bit thinner. Okay, like so. And it'll kind of bunch up a little bit on you, but the good thing with this adhesive, if it's relatively malleable, so you can kind of spread it and get the size of strip that you need, like so. Okay, and if it curls up, just use your tools to spread it out like that. Okay, this one I'm going to cut in half. Okay, so this looks a little messy right now. I'm still getting used to working with this type of double sticky tape, so excuse the poor technique. Let's go back to our workstation here. Okay, let's go to our filters. Now that we have our tape prepped, I'm going to go ahead and want to clean these filters out, just because they might have some dust on them. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll give it a quick blast of air here with my air blaster, just to get the large particles of dust gone. And then I'll give it a wipe with a clean microfiber cloth. So we blast that out first with the air blaster, just so you don't grind those larger air particles into the filter. Of course, me cleaning it with a microfiber cloth is adding its own dust particles, but we'll give it another blast after everything is already assembled on. Okay, and then if you look to the left, let's loosen this camera up. I have a piece of black paper that I've just stuck onto my workstation, and then I use that for contrast with the light above to kind of rotate the filter, check for fingerprints, check for dust later on, but really for fingerprints at this point. So if that looks fingerprint free, I'll set that there. Grab our next one. Okay. Go back to the side here. Again, we'll lift this up. Quick blast of air. Give it a wipe down. Okay, go back to left. Check for any fingerprints in the light. There's a little bit of dust I see, but that's okay. We'll take care of that later. So we are fingerprint free. Then we're going to go to our masking here. Okay. If this looks a little bit dusty, you can take a, very sparing amount of alcohol on a Q-tip and wipe here. Be careful to avoid saturating it because the alcohol over time will remove the lettering on the inside if it's soaked long enough. We'll go ahead and take our long filter first. This is the trickier one. Kind of lay that in there like so. Kind of see the areas where you can attach the tape. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape here to the right side right here. Gosh, that static is really... That's the annoying part about working with this. Probably would be better with nitrile gloves. I don't think I would have the static issue as much on my hands. So let's set that down there. I bet you it's this plastic tool that's generating that static. Okay, so I'll apply a little bit of double-sided tape here to the left. And I think that will be fine. And just a tad to the right, but not too far to the right because it's just a little bit short on this filter. So set this back to the side. We'll take our thin strip of tape. Now to apply the tape, I've seen people do this with decals on models, and I can see why, because you have such a fine tip to work with. This is actually what I use to kind of scoop up my filter material. So let me show you what I mean. So there's a thin strip of double-sided tape there. You can see on the left. So I kind of just use one tool to hold it, and then my scalpel on the other end, I grab it by the edge. Okay, like so. Let's go back over here. Sorry for all the camera rotations. There we go. Okay, let's try to put this here on the side. Kind of lay it down. You can switch tools here. Again, this is pretty malleable, so just kind of apply the tape more towards the center parts of the big plastic, avoiding the tape getting closer towards the openings or the windows, just so that when you push it down, it doesn't spread into an area that might be visible. And then I tap down on the tape a little bit, so that way it's not popping up so much. But there you go. So we got one side over there with adhesive. Already much, much easier to work with this than with super glue. Let's grab the other piece of glue strip here. Go to this side. Okay. And then same thing, kind of spread it out. And get it where you need to go. This almost has like a like semi-dry rubber cement type of feel, so you can spread it just a little bit. Okay, so there we go. All done. Let's take our long filter here. Okay, we're gonna do several, rounds of blasting with air here. Okay, set this here and okay, lay that down. So great, the glue is grabbing from the right and the left, which is perfect. Okay, make sure you stretch your filter out so that it's not bunching up in the middle. Okay, and once you think it's lined up pretty well, you can go ahead and take something like a toothpick and just tap down on top of the filter where the glue is, and that'll kind of secure the glue better to the filter. And then the good thing with this double-sided tape too is that if you make a mistake, you can just, rip this filter off. You can still use the same strip, or easily remove that strip with your hobby knife rather than have messy super glue to work with. Okay, so I'm checking that window that we're covering. I want to make sure that it's covered really well. Not just that it's covering it, but that it's a little bit larger than the cutout for that window, because as you hold this masking at an angle, when it's reassembled on the watch, like this way or left or right, you're going to notice those areas where it's not, where the filter doesn't overlap. And then you'll start to see the naked screen underneath, which is what we don't want. So that looks good. So now we can move on to the large filter here. That one, I'm pretty sure I already know. It was going all the way up to the edge here and up here. So this is where I'm going to apply my double-sided tape. Okay, so take a big piece here, put it right there. Kind of straighten out the tape. Okay, and then I'll probably put another piece here. I wasn't planning to, but might as well. Let's put another piece right there. Just cut one of these out really quick. Okay, just a small dot right here on the left. Okay, and spread that out. Good, so we're good to go there. Let's grab our filter. Okay, make sure we're holding it in the right orientation. Okay, another quick blast here. All right, set this down. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then we can take toothpick, press down. And that should secure it the rest of the way. Okay. We'll lift this up, try to avoid touching the filter. Another quick blast. Be a little bit gentle here. You don't want to blow the filter off the tape, especially when you're hitting it with air from this side, so just be very gentle. Okay, let's take our module here. Another blast. Let's put it over that. Actually, before that, we'll go back to our black square here. I'm going to hold the filter here, look for fingerprints again. Again, just easier to do it against a black background with a light overhead. That looks good. And then I'm also going to look for dust at this point because this is about to be installed. So, see just a little bit. Good, flip it over. It's a little bit of dust here on the masking. Get that off. Okay, take a look at the whole masking as well besides the filter. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and that's how it'll look on the watch. Okay, so now we can go ahead and reassemble. Take our watch case off. Now remember which orientation the masking is going to go inside. So I know that this is the 12 o'clock to the left, so that's where the round analog clock is going to go. Tap that in gently at the corners. Take your module, give this a blast of air away from the case. Okay, oh, also one other thing. As you're putting the parts back, you have these inside parts. This is called the pusher or the button, and it extends inside the case with the stem. So on this particular model, I don't have to worry because the stem automatically pushes itself out. But with other watches, and just for good practice, always give these a small push with your tool, just so it provides clearance for you to reinsert the module. So again, quick blast of air here. Put this down. Okay, you'll notice it doesn't really sit quite flush, and that's because it's resting on top of those stems, which is fine. You just need to go ahead and put a little bit of pressure with one finger in the middle, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're going to pry from outside to inside gently on these little metal tabs. And that will allow the tabs to sit behind those stems so that way your buttons can function properly. So there you go. Now if we turn this at the side, it sits nice and flat, which is great. Okay, then I'm going to flip this over, take off this protective film for now. Okay, go ahead and rotate the watch. Okay, so I like to go up, down, left, and right, and I'm checking for dust, of course, checking for fingerprints, not just on the filters, but also on the masking that I was touching. And then I'm also checking the filters to make sure that as I rotate it, there's full coverage of the filter. There's no yellow of the screen that I can see to the sides. Okay, I also want to make sure that I don't see any of my double-sided tape. So this looks really good. Also, as you rotate it, because these filters are so fragile, it's easy to bend them without noticing. So rotating it in the light, you'll see the light refract off the filter at an awkward angle if it's bent, in which case you'll have to replace that. Okay, so this looks good. Then we're going to go to our functions. So I'm keeping pressure here gently with my finger. Let's start with the bottom left button. We don't have a sound because the sound is coming from the case back. Let's go to our timer. We're going to test the bottom right button. Good. Top left to reset. That looks good. Let's test the backlight, which is the top right. And there you go. It's all orange. The orange is from the factory. That's not because I put an orange filter in there. Okay, so now that we know our buttons are functioning well, you can set the time later. Let's put our protective film back on. Okay, reassemble this watch. So again, just make sure that module is still pressed down. Here's your O-ring. Now, O-ring, so it really doesn't matter if you put it this way or this way or this way. There's no special notch like you have on the AE 1200 or 1300. So just make sure it has a little bit of a glisten in the direct light, which means it's well lubricated. If it doesn't, you can apply 100% silicone oil. Go ahead and set this down in its trough. Okay, make sure that trough is free of debris. Give it a light tap down with a blunt instrument. Don't use anything sharp like a hobby knife because that will cut into the O-ring and possibly compromise the water resistance integrity. Take your case back, make sure you orient it correctly. So this is the way the Casio word looks at the 12 o'clock position. This is the 6. Okay, to reassemble this, if you have the strap attached, you have to kind of glide that top part underneath that little keeper for the O-ring and then set that down. Okay, so that looks good. At this point, your case back is on, so I'm going to give it a squeeze here, and then I'm going to check the seam between the case back and the case, rotating around, making sure that the O-ring is not projecting anywhere. Okay, so now that that looks good, we can take our screws, loosely put these back in. Great. Go to your micro screwdriver here. Okay, maintain pressure with your left finger. Okay, loosely screw in these just till the case back makes contact. Give it one more look to make sure that O-ring is not coming out at all, and then you can fully tighten. Don't over tighten because the threads are made out of resin and the screws are metal, so it'll be easy to strip those threads if you go too much. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, now we're going to reattach our strap. So to do this, you can push the you can push the spring bar all the way to one side like that, like overextend it. Okay, now you have holes on the inside here. You can see that hole. There's the hole there. There's another hole there. So set this, put your thumb underneath the spring bar, okay, and then put it inside one of these holes, and then slide the strap in, and then rest the other spring bar on top of the other lug, okay. Maintain pressure with one of your fingers, and then pry inward on that spring bar, just so that it goes underneath that lug. Now we're not sure if it's in the hole yet, so you want to kind of maneuver the strap around and then take your tool and this time pry inward to outward like this until you see the spring bar slide into the hole of the upper lug. So you can both see it and usually feel it. Okay, if you're not finding the hole, don't force it. Okay, just rearrange where your left index finger is to kind of maneuver that strap. This is one of the harder straps to put back in, so. Okay, and then go to the other one. Even though you inserted it, double check. Same procedure, inside to outside with your tool. Okay, let me take a look here. Great. Okay, and so the best way to grab that spring bar, let me grab a spare one here, okay, is you're putting your tool, basically right here on this little ledge that you have on the spring bar, and you're kind of forcing it inside of the hole. Okay, Once you have your strap attached, you want to test it. So you want to pull it to the outside gently, but not too firm. You don't want to ruin those lugs. Then you want to twist it left to right and then also up and down. Because if that spring bar is just loosely inside the hole and not fully seated, it's going to pop out, and you'd rather have the strap pop out now than when it's on your wrist. And even though we didn't work with the other side, we'll just go ahead and make sure that from the factory they put this in properly as well. Okay, that's good. And I think we're good to go. So let's take a look at our final product here. There we go, all set. Very subtle design here with the orange filter, but I think just adds enough pop to make the piece stand out. Especially the orange has kind of a vintage feel with that tan yellowish screen, and picks up a little bit on the HD that's red and the 10-year battery that's also in red. So I really like this choice. Okay, and you're all set to go. So I'm gonna get the time set for my buddy's location. And then that's pretty much out. Maybe I'll go over that right now with you guys in the video. So if you're on the main time screen, okay, it says T1, that's your first time zone. Push and hold the top left button. Okay, then you're blinking. To shift between the different values that you want to adjust, you're going to push this bottom left button. Okay, so let's just say he's over here in this part of the world, LAX, and push it again. We're going to go to the hours now. Notice the P for PM. AM will just show up as blank, so you can adjust the time forward with the bottom right and adjust the time backward with the bottom left. Okay, and to change values again, bottom left, forward, backward with the time, 12 hour or 24, again, bottom right or bottom left, it doesn't matter. Set the year to 2022. Okay, bottom left, move to our month. Bottom left, move to the day. I believe we're on the 25th today. Bottom left again will bring you back to, I think that's local time 1, I think. Actually, I forgot what LT means. Okay, back to our seconds again. And I forgot to say this, but when you go to the region again, same thing, forward or backward to find your region. Once you're all set with that, go ahead and push the top left button once. It'll stop blinking and you're good to go. So that's how you do the basic adjustments on your watch. I would suggest watching the other videos on YouTube for the full functions of the watch, but just the basics here, that's how you do that. And you'll notice that now that we have the case back, we have the sound back as well. All right, guys, so that'll do it for today's video. Any comments or questions, please put them down below. Again, the materials, I'll try to list out as many as I can in the description. If you could subscribe to this channel as well as to the Instagram down below, that would be greatly appreciated. And as always, have fun, and I'll see you guys on the next one.